So in those early days, and we're talking from mid-50s through to mid-60s and late 60s, probably from the period when Wat Pong was established to early years when Ajahn Chah arrived in the late 60s. And Ajahn Chah was his health was still quite strong, although as I've said, he had periodic bouts of malaria. Plus, he'd had asthmatic problems from child, and also terrible problems with his teeth. And one famous event was having all of his teeth pulled out without anaesthetic in one session. And all the ones that were left, because they were all starting to rot and fall out anyway. I mean, one of the things he did was tie a piece of string around a rock, and then the other end around one of his teeth, and then throw the rock so it pull one of his teeth out. But generally speaking, very kind of vigorous. And then in the 70s, he just suddenly, like this, I've seen this with other people from Northeast, they just suddenly get old in a period of a few months. And that's something that happened to Ajahn Chah. It's like sort of the accumulation of all the austerities over many years. But during that period where he was, very vigorous and powerful, and he was still pushing himself in those early years. So he hadn't finished his practice, and so he also stressing group meditation, group meetings, and so basically everyone just had to try and stay with him. Of course, nobody was really up to that kind of intensity of practice.
How many hours a day would that be, those meetings? Sitting?
Well, they do these meetings where they often like sit all night, or every one prat on the 8th day of the moon and the 15th day of the moon, then practicing right through the night, and usually expected not to go to bed before 11, and then the bell at 3, and you're expected to be at the sala by 3:15. If your punctuality was a big thing, and if you were late even for a few minutes, there would be a ruang. And he was very, very, very much kind of disciplinarian, very kind of strict, and I don't think that it would be such an attractive Ajahn Chah to many people as the one that appears in the books that have been published. Because in the course of your life, you're in sort of evolution of the way that he lived his life. But I think particularly, and that he was striving and pushing himself in his own practice, and many of the monks just couldn't handle it, and so exactly why things relaxed to a certain degree over the years is open to interpretation. There are the possibilities of one, that he finished his practice and he didn't need to do that for himself. Secondly, the results weren't as good as he would have hoped. He realized that things that he could do, most other monks couldn't, and that putting the pressure on monks in that kind of unrelenting kind of way often gave rise to tension and a common vein of young men's competition, and sort of competitive, and people leaving, and realizing that perhaps that kind of regime is one in which you're only ever going to be able to train an elite of very highly committed people with a lot of parami. So there are various, as you know, various interpretations of this.
Ajahn said he felt that wasn't true. He was just exhausted, couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah,
do you think?
And that's part, again, as he got older, but you see, in as I say, in late 50s, early 60s, he was strong, and he needed to do it for himself. So, assuming, that he got to that point where he didn't need that, where he'd reached a stable state, then, the whole necessity for it. So, I mean, if you feel that you have to do something, you can usually do it, can't you? I mean, in many cases, you can do much more than you think you can do. But when you don't need to do something, then it's much harder to keep up something. Anyway, that's the speculation. So really, very strict disciplinarian, and the way of disciplining the Sangha was that it's more like kind of collective punishment. If anybody did something unmindful, heedless, really, breaking the rules, the regulations or something, then after the evening puja, the evening meeting, and after the Vinaya instruction, he would give a talk, and that was the punishment. So this is a whole different idea of what Dhamma talks are about. He would talk and talk and talk. Sometimes it'd be quite, talk of admonition and scolding kind of talk. But sometimes just general. But the thing is, you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So if he only needs just almost no sleep at all. But if you're there,
Did he ever say to people?
I think periods, if he went into samadhi, he could, if he wanted to, might do with an hour or two, or even less. And often he did. But of course, if you're not at that level, your samadhi's not at that level. If you have to listen to a Dhamma talk till 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, then you still have to get up at 3 in the morning. So whenever anybody would do something wrong, and they say, "Oh dear, looks like we're in for a long talk tonight," that kind of.